Hello everybody, it's Mike Levin on Saturday, June 11th, 2022. It is 10 years since my 2012 unboxing of the Raspberry Pi. Sometimes I say first on the internet, but I've subsequently learned second on the internet to unbox the Raspberry Pi and introduce it to the world. And there it is, the package I was waiting 3 months for. Shout out to Element 14 for being the first distributor to take my order and ship me the unit. Here's a little cardboard box it comes in. This is going to be an 8-minute video. I could have probably edited it down to half of that, but you'll see why I didn't in a few moments. I decided to keep this whole experience rather raw and show you all the same issues I encountered. We take the device out of its little anti-static bag. And there it is, the $35 computer that's going to change the world. And there you have it. I did encounter problems. I had a bad SD card that made it take a while to boot. And I've answered questions over the 12 years following. This is a 12-year history of comments down there. With everything from, does it run XY video game? That was the big one. A lot of people throwing hate at this thing because 3D gaming was all the rage and they wanted their Diablos and their Minecrafts, which is fine. And this thing has come a long way, able to run a lot of that stuff. But rather than it adapting to the world has adapted to it. We all see what has happened with ARM processors in the intervening years where expectations are changed. So I'm just going to scroll at a few of these comments and see what's up. Now that a year has passed since the initial review, has boot sequence and program execution gotten any better? Yes, it got better immediately on getting a better SD card. This is actually a very good and helpful review. Oops. Hey, okay, that's fine. I'm going to keep that there. It doesn't ruin the video, although I think I will turn on airplane mode. Thank you very much for going through your total right experience. That really helped me understand what I will be getting. Yeah, so I kept it raw. I showed the genuine initial experience and people appreciated that. It became my first million-view video. On the tail of unboxing a reissue of the Commodore 64, which got, maybe 60,000 views. So this was my first biggie. Hey, Mike. Great and insightful as always. Would definitely consider getting a Raspberry Pi myself one day. Question, what command did you use at that spot to resolve the networking error issue? And also, what the model and brand of that? Well, it was the second run from the factory line. I couldn't get the first run, and I don't remember the network command. And a few of my comments. I'm impressed how this little thing works. It's amazing that you can browse the internet with this little monster, right? So the incorporation of the Broadcom GPU, graphics processing unit, is what set this apart from other things I looked at beforehand, like the Rascal. The Rascal was a Raspberry Pi before the Raspberry Pi, but without that ever so critical desktop software enabling GPU. It makes a lot to be an educational instrument. What else is relevant that you can do with this machine? Well, 12 years later, we see it's basically changed the world. Excellent intro. I bought mine today, though mine was a lot more expensive, right? It became in very much demand. I'm really excited not only to use it as a media center, but for controlling a stepper motor, the home projects, the 3D scanners. That was a big part of the point. At $35, the Raspberry Pi can be incorporated into unlimited projects, hacking, right? But I don't have to explain that now. Everyone gets it. They didn't get it then. I might scroll to the bottom to show the hate. I think the love has kind of trickled to the top here, and I'm really thrilled that this is a positive experience. I didn't go through these comments yet, so I remember them being considerably more negative, but that's because the negative were greater in volume, but the algorithm has tweaked the good stuff to the top. Yay, YouTube. Yes, I've had a look at Linux. It's quite an impressive thing. I don't have any use for a server though, but I can see how it would be immensely useful. So I put out my own version of Linux so people could do Raspberry Pi type things before Raspberry Pi, right? I beat the Raspberry Pi to market with something where you could just kick the tires of Linux. That was the Levinix distro. And Raspberry Pi has taken it over in Spirit on the hardware end. And Jupyter Lab has really taken that over on Spirit on the portability of code across operating systems. I'll talk about that in other videos. Wow, this brings back the days of the TRS-80, Timex, C64 tinkering. Love it. What is your sense of this board's ability to be a super Arduino? Yes, people get it. For things like blob detection, vision, boy, was that person forward thinking 9 years ago. If you got into computer vision with a Raspberry Pi back then, look at where you'd be today. Although, on the other hand, you'd start to verge into the realms of smartphones, but having a desktop operating system rather than Android, iOS, or some other mobile OS would be incredibly useful. I'm playing COD, Ghost, and Battlefield 4 with this right now, the ultimate monster gaming PC. Well, there you go. That's an example of the snarkiness. That's a nice way of saying that, but it doesn't run all the 3D games. Battlefield. Oh, Battlefield was such a big one people wanted. Yes, it matters greatly. In fact, it can only load things from the card at the speed of the card. I'd go class 10. They aren't much more anyhow. Your base, oh, SD card advice. Thank you. People really helped me. The community stepped up and was like, well, did you think about this? Did you upgrade that? Yeah, it was an incredible slow SD card, but people playing with this might have had a similar experience. So it's fair if you lower the expectations of boot time, then when you really get this thing and it boots in 10 seconds, how much happier you will be. Under promise, over deliver. You're welcome, Eben. Looks interesting. I bought a Pi, waiting for the package. Makes me wish I held on to my Commodore 64. I remember reading about this. A $35 computer is great in and of itself. See, thank you. People get the point. Even if it just does simple browsing. It does browsing for $35. This is so much win, LOL, but I'm sure I can do above and beyond. Well, of course you can. Spend more, get more. Hi, and thanks for this video. I'm a newbie to Raspberry Pi myself and appreciate this very clear instruction on how to start. I did some minimal editing on that video, very minimal. It was in the office of 360i at the time, the most significant thing I did at 360i, except for get them onto the Wave report. Great stuff, man. Really made this video helpful by keeping it unedited. Good call. You're welcome. Thank you for the feedback. I'm so excited to get Raspberry Pi going to run a Telnet BBS off of it. I'm so sad about the passing of Barry Altman in Commodore USA. I really wanted a C64X and was going to eventually get one. Even though I had high hopes for the company, I had a feeling to just get one right away on credit, just to be safe. Even the box is precious. I am glad you display your box proudly. I miss reading your posts on the CA.org forum. Boy, an old schooler, thank you. I still use COS Vision. Oh my God, glad I updated it to 9 when I could. Richard Lannister, thank you, Richard. Screenshot that. This is food for the soul, my friends. I've been around the block a few times. Some people know me from not 10 years ago from unboxing the Raspberry Pi. People know me from 20 and 30 years ago from the Amiga user group in Philadelphia on Drexel University's campus. So this kind of stuff just goes on forever. A lot of these are my comments. It was the old school approach that made me try it in the first place, even though I do not need it at the time being, that is. I'm one of the people who always has at least one terminal session going on at any moment, and that's a great one to end on. I can say so much more. I can scroll so much more. Most things are just that much simpler from a command line. The angels play the trumpets and the clouds part. And it really makes sense to see the computer in a whole other way, unlocking its potential instead of just interacting with the internet. So I will keep an eye on Linux for sure and recommend it to people in need, right? So I did, through a modest little software trick, the Raspberry Pi before the Raspberry Pi, a way to kick the tires of Linux, because that's the important thing. Get yourself on command line. And the Raspberry Pi was the last most significant thing to happen before Microsoft's adding WSL, the Windows subsystem for Linux, the WSL command, space -- install, and eliminating the need for the 3 convoluted steps that Windows 10 required. Windows 10 made you activate the Windows subsystem for Linux. It made you activate the hypervisor with these long cryptic commands. And then it made you like patch the Linux kernel with a download that you had to load and run. So I really didn't push on WSL back in the Windows 10 days. But as of the latest releases of Windows 11, the process is smooth as silk. And you can do as Oscar Jungle recommends, which is always have at least one terminal session going on at any given moment. I do it on screen 1 with a wonderful virtual desktop system that's now built into Windows, Mac, and all other Linux desktop distros. So get your butt to Linux full screen terminal on one of your virtual desktops. Keep it loaded all the time. It's like the whole point. And I guess I'll just rewind this to the beginning for a pan across my desk to shut this thing out with, because which one of these is not like the other? That would be me. I can't go full screen. Someday, play, maybe. Everyone in defense of mobile. It's probably vertical on your screen, right? But at least it's playing. Let's see what happens. No? Anyone? Is it worth it? Raw video all the time. Always raw all the time. One more try. Anyway, you can tune in yourselves and you can watch that original video. I'm now up to 10,700 subscribers. I've been on the YouTube since 2006, even longer than this. This particular video had 1.3 million views, and I am the messenger of the future. I guarantee it. And what I'm telling you now is get your butt on Linux. If you hadn't done it this first time 10 years ago with a Raspberry Pi, do it today. Do it today with Windows 11, which you're probably on or will imminently be on as Microsoft coerces you onto it. And use the best magic trick in today's world. WSL space -- install. Thanks for joining me. Hope to talk to you soon. Don't forget to subscribe, thumbs up, all that happy stuff.